But Christian, speaking of free-to-play things, if you want to know why people put out free-to-play games, another game on your list, Zenless Zone Zero, just touted 50 million downloads in its first week. That's why you put out a free-to-play game.
Yeah.
I just like knowing that I was one of those, you know, like I'm so cool. I'm one of those. I'm
you
in
were
the
at
club.
38,478,000.
It would have been nothing
Part
without
of the
me.
Hoyoverse.
Nothing without me. So I have some broad thoughts I want to say about, you know, like I said, my free-to-play playing these past couple of weeks that I think are telling about me as a person, a gamer, and I think perhaps might speak to others that listen to this show as well. But before I get to that, Zenless Zone Zero, I thought was going to be the game that really got me of these. Genshin Impact, I put a little bit of time into. I don't know if you still can't, but back in the day, you couldn't invert the Y-axis. I'm a Y-axis invert character player.
Me too.
Boom. Really threw me off that game, despite everything else about it, like the turn-based combat being exquisite and all that stuff. Zenless Zone Zero, you can invert the Y-axis. Huzzah! And it is, or was pitched, at least I thought it was going to be very Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, action game. And while it is that, I would say, and I probably played 3 hours of this game, so I know there are folks that have played way more than me. But in my hours with the game, I would say that part of the game is maybe 20%, if I'm being generous. It might be even a little below that. And the rest of the game, which I think might really, really click with a lot of people, doesn't click as hard for me. The rest of the game, or other parts of the game, feel Persona 4 or 5-ish, where you're kind of going around and having relationships with people and eating ramen and doing these side missions for your business with these characters that seem built to be cosplayed. Like every character you see, it's like, oh my gosh, Comic-Con is going to be covered in these heroes, right? Like, and it's all of that stuff, but wrapped in a gacha. Like it's still a Hoverse game, right? It's still all the gacha mechanics of this character and grinding up, leveling up the character through all of the currencies that exist in the game. But then even the action combat part of it, you are these hackers. There are these voids in the world, and people go into them to get resources to pull out, but you get lost in there. It's a really cool concept. I think the way they paint the plot in the beginning of the game is a little muddy, but this idea of there being these mysterious zones that if you're in for too long corrupt you and turn you into this monster, but there are these awesome resources in there, but also the walls are constantly moving, so it's dangerous to go in there. Really, really cool premise. And so you are a character who then guides these folks into these voids. And so that part of the game, you work at a video rental shop, and the production value of this game is just second to none. I mean, it looks incredible. The art style, they just nailed it, like absolutely beautiful. And so you're in the back room of this video store on this huge wall of kind of CRT TVs that all have this really cool, like, you could see this being the album cover for any of the Midnight album, Jeff. You know, like just a perfect retro but modern aesthetic, just absolutely beautiful. And you are doing what could feel like a Marvel's Spider-Man minigame, you know, where you're guiding these characters that are in the void, trying to get the payload and then get out. And as you do things, you hit a button, you got to bring a switch around to open this new path, and you can only guide them in certain ways, then it resets, and you have to, you know, but you're just doing that on these interconnected CRT TVs. And then along that path at random places, there are the narrative is like, oh, watch out, you're going to have combat. You know, I can't get you around to these monsters. And then so you go in there, and then you play as your team of 3 down in the void to do this action combat. And the action combat, though, is awesome. You're tag teaming in and out. It's easy enough that you can just have fun doing the flashy moves, you know, kind of like button mashing your way through Marvel vs. Capcom 2. But if you really get into it, I think there's a lot of depth there that's tied to some of the gacha mechanics and the roles of your tier level for your characters. And so I totally understand this game being a hit, but I found myself wanting to get into the combat because that's what I was there for. And maybe it was just wrong impressions on my part or wrong expectations. I didn't know so much of the game would be this other stuff and not just this. I pictured it as an open world third-person combat game, and it's not that. So while Zenless Zone Zero, I think, does a lot right, it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. And so I think because of that, it's a not for me game per se. But my goodness, I don't know how the studio has all this. I mean, I know how they have all the money now, but the resources to make these games that are just polished and beautiful, and you watch it and you're like, I want to play that. As the attract screen, so to speak, at an arcade. It's stunning.
So I got to download that. That sounds
so you're
cool.
saying, Christian, the combat is what you want. If it was just a higher percentage of the game, you'd be all over this.
The combat is very much what I like when I'm in it. It is just such a small part of the overall package of the game. Again, I've played 3 hours, so maybe that shifts. I don't think so from what I've played and what I've read. But yeah, it's just not the meat and potatoes of the game right now, unfortunately, for me.
Sounds a bit like Persona meets Astral Chain or something like that. It's more sci-fi, right? It's more like modern. It's not like the fantasy stuff that you got in Genshin.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Little dot hack.
Yeah. It's gorgeous though, and the characters are all cool, and the weapons they have are neat. You can't escape the gacha and all, all the currencies that are there. But I think it's going to be another. It already is. But
I mean, to be fair, I played a fair amount of Genshin, and you could. I mean, people are going to disagree with me, but I felt like I could get along with that game not spending money. That there was a lot to play and a lot to do if you sort of, weren't trying to keep up with the Joneses necessarily, and you just kind of accepted the game on its own terms. Yes, it was all there. Yes, the free-to-play trappings were all there. But for the most part, I had a great time playing Genshin Impact without spending anything. So I don't know if that's
do you finish a game like that? Do you finish Genshin Impact? Is there an ending to any of these?
Massively huge. I certainly didn't finish it, and I don't know if it is even finishable.
This game, I think, has a 12-hour story. I think Genshin's was maybe 25. Like they have, but then it's never meant to end. And I agree with you, Jeff.
You're on a treadmill in those games.
Yes,
by
I haven't
design.
Spent anything in Zenless Zone Zero yet either. Right. But I think we do a little bit of a disservice to be like, yeah, you don't have to spend anything, which is true, you don't. But I think it's a disservice to just kind of write that off because you are constantly being told how to, why to, and there are literal roadblocks put in your way to encourage the game. It's not an altruistic game.
Right. No, that's why I don't play the free to play. I mean, that's what it is. With Fortnite, I love that I'm buying these virtual action figures of these characters that I love. Like when they put up the turtles, I was like, I kind of want to have, and I don't play it that often, but I was like, I love the turtles and I want that, and so I got them. And so you get a Lego version of the turtle, and you get the turtle that will play all the Rock Band stuff because they put the Fortnite Festival into it as part of it now. But yeah, the handout kind of thing, like you should spend, which I know is part of the design, but that always turns me off, whether I'm playing on a mobile thing or, I certainly appreciate the quality of the work in something like Genshin, and the Zenless Zone Zero sounds amazing. Like I really want to check it out, but that stuff always turns me off.
Yeah, and please don't get me wrong. I tend to be on that side as well. I just, it's hard because there is a lot of game there that can be enjoyed on a certain level. But you're right. It is constantly trying to sell you. And that is a problem.